is there a secret to this business? And my answer is yes, there is a secret. And that secret is you can't have a weakness. Build your business around domestic travel. It protects you against crisis. I'm going to lead you out of this. I have the numbers to prove it. Look what we're doing compared to the competition. And my goal is to lead my owners out of this mess.
Imagine facing 2 hurricanes in just 2 months. That was the reality for Terry Whyte in Anna Maria Island off the coast of Florida. Hear how he bounced back by harnessing his 30,000 strong email list, storytelling, and exceptional content marketing. This is a lesson every property manager needs to hear. Terry, thank you for joining us on the House Planner podcast. What was it like going through 2 hurricanes in 2 months? How did it impact your properties, first of all, and of course your mindset?
It was pretty crazy. You know, to be hit with 1 hurricane is one thing. To hit 2 back to back is really something very few people, I hope, ever have to experience. So it was really a tale of 2, not just 2 hurricanes. The effect of the 1 hurricane, the first one that hit was real bad. The second one that hit was supposed to be catastrophic, and it didn't turn out to be much of a problem at all. We really got lucky there. But the tale of the 2 hurricanes was the first one, and really it was the effect it had on properties that were built on ground level, and then the other ones that were on pillars. That the ones on pillars were barely affected at all, other than the swimming pools. The properties on ground level were pretty much destroyed. And it was a very different hurricane in a way. People normally would associate hurricanes with extensive wind damage, 100-mile-an-hour winds and stuff. Ours was primarily all flooding. All the damage had very little to do with wind damage and primarily everything to do with flooding.
So how did you deal with it, and how did you bounce back?
Dealing with it, it was very difficult because it was very devastating to start with. And then access to the island, of course, was cut off. You couldn't get to the island. So just trying to get accurate information on how extensive the damage was to my properties in particular, how to get my team onto the island, where that was at one time fishermen were on the mainland, they were just volunteering to say, hey, you want to get to the island, jump on the boat, we'll take you across, kind of thing. And then eventually a lot of the damage, and really affected me more than most people. I was just unfortunate. A lot of my properties were blacked out. They had no electricity, and some of them didn't have electricity for almost 3 months. So I was really unfortunate there. But then when I finally got my people onto the island, because I'm not only a property manager, I'm an owner. I have the pass. I had this property pass that will get you on the line in case of emergency, and they have to cut you off. So I had all my team has my passes. So I was eventually able to get them on, and then assess the damage to the properties. And again, it depended if my properties were on pillars, not much damage at all, other than the swimming pools, and then anything on ground level was just destroyed.
Just describe to us the geographic location, exactly where you are. And then in terms of the properties, how many are we talking, and how many are yours that you own, and how many are ones that you manage?
Okay, so Anna Maria Island is a very small island on Florida's Gulf Coast. It's about halfway down the state on the Gulf there. It's only 7 miles wide, 7 miles long. The widest part would be half a mile, but that hardly ever happens. It's basically about the width of a football field wide. So there's water. There's the Gulf of Mexico on the west. There's Florida's Intercoastal Waterway on the east. And that's so literally you're surrounded by water, and the unthinkable can happen. But I've owned there for 35 years, managed there for 35 years. We've had some hurricanes, and been blacked out a little bit here, and they blow the roof off of this place or that place and knock some trees down. But in 35 years, we're very fortunate. But this one, we weren't so lucky. This one got us, for sure.
So just talk about bouncing back then, what you've done since, and how your business has recovered since 2 hurricanes in a very short space of time.
I had a business plan, and I knew what my strategy was going to be immediately. Once got through the assessment, knew how properties fared, other ones didn't. My strategy, I knew from the start, I had to change the narrative. And it started on Facebook. So as bad as it got on Facebook, all the photos of the damage, and stuff like that. But you can also leverage Facebook when it starts to recover, which I knew I would do. But my primary strategy was I had to change the narrative that this place is destroyed and it's going to take 2 years to rebuild. And then I knew I had a plan in place and I knew how I was going to attack this and what the strategy would be. I've always been a big believer in marketing, especially content marketing, more so than SEO or anything like that. And so I knew I was going to really leverage my past guest database, which I had about 30,000 people on that. So number one, that was my number one strategy was I was going to continue with the content marketing and then just to reflect the recovery, the process of it, how even if it was slow, anything was good. Anything was good news because it couldn't get any worse kind of thing there. So, and then, so I did that. And then what I did too with my strategy was on my website, I had a banner on there and it was every 14 days, it was an update on the progress of hurricane recovery. And then because I'm big into content marketing and digital marketing and email marketing, we sent an update out I always did it anyway, every 14 days to my database. So in that was the recovery on my website was the recovery. And then I would take and I would copy and paste the highlights of the recovery into my OTA listings, so everything was there. But I think the one big thing that helped the most was, and I think you've probably seen this, I posted on LinkedIn, year to date, I'm up 5.2%. The island is down 36.0%. And I think the strategy, the marketing, the game plan really worked out in the end.
Yeah, this shows the power of storytelling and marketing, because this is a recovery strategy, but also a direct booking strategy. It's pretty much the same thing, right? Yeah. Right. Okay, real talk now for all you hosts out there. You know that moment when your guest messages you again with, "Hey, what's the Wi-Fi code?" Or you're staring at 5 different calendars, wondering if you've accidentally double booked the cottage. Yes, we've all been there. That's why here at Host Planet, we recommend Hostfully. It's basically your rentals control center. It handles bookings across all the big platforms, syncs your calendars to ensure there are no double bookings, automates guest messages, and even creates these really slick digital guidebooks that stop all the repeat questions. Honestly, it just makes your life easier and keeps your guests happier, helping you achieve those all-important 5-star reviews. And here is a little bonus. If you're a Host Planet listener, you can get $500 off onboarding for Hostfully's property management software and 30% off digital guidebooks for life. Just hit the link in the show notes and use the codes PLANET500 for the PMS and HostPlanetGB for the guidebooks. And if you'd like a proper walkthrough, there's also a link to book a demo with Frank Bosey from Hostfully. He will show you how it all works. Less stress, more bookings, sorted with Hostfully. Just how important is it, when you've got those 30,000 guest emails, and these are all people that have been before, and I imagine the vast majority have absolutely loved it. How important is it to utilize those customers who are engaged in what you're selling?
That was my number one strategy. I knew the first people to come back and stay with me and trust me, they could believe what I was saying, that, we're covered, the beaches are open, the restaurants are open, not all, and my properties are in good shape. That was the key for me to leverage that, because if I was trying to find new customers, that would have been a pretty tough deal, for sure.
Yeah, and in terms of marketing and content marketing, like you mentioned there, just how important is that for property management companies? Because you hear of a lot, and marketing, if times are tough, that can be the first thing that goes to the wayside. They don't spend any money on it anymore. And I've heard also tales of property management companies who don't really prioritize marketing, and they don't really grow maybe as fast as they could do. So like from your point of view, just like how important is it to concentrate on that content marketing and that storytelling aspect?
It's critical to me. I never want to be, solely dependent on OTAs. I advertise on them. I'm about 50% book direct. It depends on the month. Sometimes it's as low as 30. It just depends on the month, kind of thing there. But there's two metrics to that guest as well. It's if you're getting the returning guests. That's a great metric. That means you did a good job. They had a good vacation. They trust you, kind of thing. But if you're not growing organically, that's the second metric. So for me, I'll always put real emphasis on organic growth too. So I have both covered. I put the significance on both, the returning guests and the organic. And in the end, I think when a crisis comes like this, and things can go bad. And you never know what, just like Airbnb, maybe they move you to the bottom of the algorithm. Maybe it's booking.com. There's always that. And I look at my website as an OTA. Like I'm an OTA, so I take it seriously. I would say other than my PMS, probably my website is the second biggest part of my tech stack and most important to me, so it's critical.
And what are the aspects of your website that help you to convert lookers into bookers?
Work with reputable vendors that know what they're doing. Like I spend a lot of money on Google AdWords, for example, Facebook PPC, Instagram PPC, and then email marketing on top of that. But so I have a really good website built by professional website built that I'm proud of, that looks real good, and people would look at it and say, there's a professional, he knows what he's doing. So you get the instant credibility there, and then proven partners that you work with that they know PPC, because you can burn through money like thousands of dollars and have nothing to show for it. And then email marketing, how do you effectively email market to people that you don't end up in spam, that they don't read it, they don't open it, so working with reputable, and it costs money, but the return is well worth the effort.
Going back to the recovery a little bit, how did you deal with the crisis in relation to your own team that you've got working for you, and also like the local community? How did you help the community to recover as well? I mean, presumably by getting more bookings, but I mean, I imagine
Yes.
There were lots of acts of kindness among the community to help everybody, unite and deal with these problems.
The community wasn't such a big deal with kindness or anything like that. We were all in the same, trying to get through it, and what I've always prided myself in, and I never tried to be like the rest of the community. I'm better than what they do, and I have the data to show it. But what really surprised me the most was the acts of kindness. I've got a couple of stories I want to share with you. The guests that they see one hair on the floor, they're on the phone. They say one leaf in the pool, they're on the phone. They're threatening bad reviews. So this one complex in particular, I own 3 properties in this complex, and there's 32 in it. And between owning and managing, I control over half of what's in there. But anyway, that complex was one of that lost power. We had no power for 3 months. Only 8 condos in the complex had power. 24 others didn't have it for 3 months. So the first guest I accept, so I call him. He had already pre-booked, and I said, "Hey, I can't accept you. The pool's green." It's He says, "I don't care about the pool. I just want to come." So he comes. He stays there. The pool's green. It was going to stay green for the next 3 months. There's so much sand. You couldn't walk anywhere because there was 8-foot sand drifts. It was like Chicago in a snowstorm where they plowed the roads. Instead of snow, it was sand. There might have been 5 restaurants open. The guy gives me a 5-star review, after he leaves. Another woman, Gail, she had rented. This was supposed to be her 8th time staying with me. So I call Gail and say, "Gail, can't take you. I'm going to give you your money back." She says, "Terry, just keep it. I'm going to, when you recover, I'm just going to." And then she calls me about a month later and she says, "Oh, by the way, when I was supposed to stay with you, I went to the mainland. I flew to the mainland." She was in the Midwest, so she flew across the country, rented a motel room. You couldn't get to the island. They weren't allowing cars onto the island. So she's 70-something years old. She drove as far as she could. Then she walked for miles the rest of the way, every day for 7 days, to clean up garbage on the island, and then walked back and went to our hotel room, and then flew home the next week. So, and even to this day, I get so many people that they're unaware of the recovery. They just think, we're still kind of devastated, and stuff like that. And they say, we just want to be part of the process. We just want to come. We understand that things weren't like they used to be. The restaurants aren't like even if the food's crappy, we don't care. We just want to go to the restaurants, give them our business. We just want to be part of the process, the recovery. And so that was the most surprising part and the enlightening part, the people that really cared,
Yeah, showed how much those people love the destination and the businesses there for sure. To other property managers who are going to face crisis at some point, it might be weather related, it could be anything else. What are your top tips to property managers when they're facing a crisis?
The proudest part I am of this whole deal and the recovery is through it all. And in the end, when I started the recovery, I didn't have to use any new technology. The only new partner I brought in Ryan from Switchback Marketing, because for email marketing, I knew he was the best. So I brought him in. But other than that, the number one question I get asked in this business all the time is there a secret to this business? And my answer is yes, there is a secret. And that secret is you can't have a weakness. If you have a weakness, it's going to get exposed and it's going to hurt you. So in the end here, my business was in really good shape. My tech stack was in really good shape. The partners that I worked with, the vendors that I worked with. So when it came time to get into recovery mode, I was in real good shape. So if you're in good shape before the crisis starts, you'll be in good shape when the recovery mode starts.
So what are your core goals for the rest of 2025?
This is the biggest challenge that I faced. You're probably not old enough I've been through so many of these. I've been in business before, VRBO. You probably don't even remember the financial crisis. I'm not even sure if you're old enough to remember that. There was 9/11. There was the Gulf oil spill. Don't even know if you remember that. And then of course, COVID, several recessions. My goal is I've told my owners, I've kept them really updated on what I'm doing, what my strategy is, what our numbers are. But I've told them, I'm going to lead you out of this. I have the numbers. I have the numbers to prove it. Look what we're doing compared to the competition. And my goal is to lead my owners out of this mess, and I'm in good shape and I'll pull it off for sure.
Well, I certainly remember the 2008 financial crash and of course 9/11. But it was interesting actually. I was recently at the Short Stay Summit in London and presented a panel about saying our own as the forgotten community in the short-term rental space, and we were talking about owner communication really and keeping them up to date with what's going on. Like, how important is that, and how do you prioritize owner communication to constantly keep them in the picture? Because one of the bits of feedback was that owners want to know more than ever before in the last few years.
Yeah, you're right. And traditionally, I've did a really poor job of that in the past because most of my owners have been with me for over 20 years. So they just trust me. They never question what I do. The numbers are always good and they're just happy, and they just don't question it. But I knew this was different, that, this is something we've never faced before. There's uncertain times here. There's a lot of competition out there. I really needed to communicate with them of what I was doing, what our numbers are, what my strategy was going to be, how it's either working or it's not working. So for me, it was a real turning point for me that I really needed to change my mindset, where I needed to communicate with my owners, bring them into this, make them part of this, and really reassure them that I had a plan and I was going to lead them out of this.
Obviously, you're dealing with the recovery this year in 2025, but are you seeing any other trends in the industry that hosts and property managers need to be aware of?
Yeah. There's a lot. This is, as far as trends and challenges, then there's always opportunities. But, technology is incredibly complicated to a lot of people here. At some time, we're going to have a very serious discussion about the cost of technology. The vacation rental business, the margins aren't that big. the cost of technology is pretty crazy. Technology is spread out. Then we really need to change the narrative of fragmentation, because it's not getting that way now. Maybe it was at one time. Here, I've written extensively about it. If you have a good PMS, now PMSs are really starting to take this serious. Guesty's taking it serious, Streamline's taking it serious, Track is taking it serious, Hostfully taking it serious. So now if you have a really good PMS, the CRM is taking over technology in our industry like we have never seen before. They're even stronger. I'll give you an example. I know Boom, you were there at the Boom. Look at Boom was a reluctant PMS. They wanted to be everything but a PMS, and then they got so strong that they were viewed as a threat. So they had to become a PMS. But you just look at all the best technologies in our industry now, whether it's Enzo, whether it's Acquia, whether it's Breezeway. When we removed the operations module from Breezeway, it's a CRM. DAC, when they're acquired by Operto, Rubaru, in the hotel industry, Doof, all the best technologies now are the CRM, So between a really good PMS and a really good CRM, it's not as fragmented as people are led to believe that they believe themselves. They just don't understand how strong some of these other platforms are. An example, look at Acquia, look at Enzo. They're really mini micro PMSs, So, but the trends that I'm seeing is technology for sure is a real. And then the next trend we're going to see, and we've seen Airbnb, they've started it. They tried it during and COVID kind of held it. So in their defense, it just didn't work because of COVID, is what's going to happen when you get to the destination. We've been through this. We're going through the evolution now. It's a natural evolution. We've learned how to use OTAs, to leverage to list on them and make, normally quite a bit of money, and be pretty successful doing it. But we're past that now. There's way too many 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condos with a pool. What's going to happen when you get to the destination? How are you going to leverage that kind of technology is really what is what's coming next here. I'll give you an example. You probably know, you're probably really aware of them. They're out of Greece. It's called Trip Around. Keep an eye on Trip Around. They've now entered into a partnership with Fair Harbor, which is good. So they're going to take up what's happening when you get to that destination. They're going to be playing a pretty big role in technology going forward there. And then there's going to be so many opportunities. Just look at what's happened lately. Walmart's in, American Express is in, Chase is in. It's only a matter of time before Facebook maybe gets in. Maybe is it going to be Amazon? There's so much opportunity going to be here. And then the challenges, I would say there's two ones that I see are going to be very big challenges. The first one is going to be radical Islam. What's going to happen? We're going to see the day probably not too long. It's not going to happen today or tomorrow, but it's going to be too dangerous to travel east of Germany, maybe France, but probably Germany. And then insurance is going to be, it won't matter anywhere on water. It could be Delaware, it could be Michigan, it could be Ohio. It's not going to be particular to the state of Florida. If you own a property on water, insurance is going to be it's going to be a problem here. And then that one there. And then I would say build your business around, because of what's going to happen in the future, build your business around domestic travel. I've always tried to build my business around, it kind of protects you against any crisis, whether it's 9/11, whether it's COVID, anything like that. So always keep in mind, I try and do my best, and as my email marketing, everything that is happening, I try to keep the future. It protects you against crisis when you're in a drive, not only drive to market, people will still fly if it's safe. They'll do that, but domestic travel, and I see the U.S. having domestic travel having a very bright future for sure.
Makes a lot of sense, especially with the kind of the protectionist things that are happening at the moment, and America first, and I guess having having somewhere people can drive to, fly to very quickly, or even the boat if they're on islands and stuff not far away. Okay, then. So what's next then? What's next for you guys for Anna Maria Island beach rentals?
Trying to get through this year. This is going to be a challenge. I've kind of misread it in the sense that I was going to write off December, January, and February. I thought if I got any revenue, I'd just be lucky. In fact, I was up this year, so it really didn't. But then I thought if I could get to March, I'd be okay. And the data is showing for the next 90 days that I'm down for the next 90 days. I'm down about 2%. The island's down 42.3. So when I thought I would get to March, I'd be okay. It's not working out that way. So I've got significant challenges coming to me. So my marketing strategy, and everything. So as far as for the rest of the year, I've got some work to do for sure.
But you're definitely bucking the trend against the competition on the island, no doubt about that. All right then, Terry, we've got a few questions to finish. These questions we ask everybody who appears on the show. So what's your favourite brand in the STR industry and why?
Okay, so it would definitely be Moving Mountains. They've been able to establish themselves as a premier brand in a saturated market. It's just crazy now, all the properties that are on the vacation rental market. Our industry has a bit of a bad reputation, of low standards, and processes and stuff like that, where they've been really able to overcome that. And not only is it good for them, it's good for when other people see vacation rent, it's good for our entire industry. So what they're doing is reflecting on the rest of it, making the rest of us look good, So what Moving Mountains has been able to accomplish is incredible, in the environment that we're operating in.
Yeah, Robin, Craig, and the team. We had Robin on the podcast. Yeah, amazing business, gets a lot of plaudits, and rightly so. An individual in the STR industry you'd like to give a shout out to, and why?
Tim Cafferty from Outer Banks, and he is an incredible ambassador to our industry. He's an incredible person and just somebody that I have the utmost respect for, just as a person.
Great shout out there for Tim. Finally, then, number one lesson learned from 2 hurricanes in 2 months.
Like I said, having a good business plan in place before tragedy, before the crisis strikes, and then you're in a really, really good place. And I'll give you an example. You'll know where I'm going with this when I say it. I worked for General Motors for 32 years. I'm retired from General Motors. And at one time, they were making billions of dollars worldwide. The North American operations were losing millions and billions of dollars, but they were making so much money in Europe, in Asia, all over the world, and they ignored the problem that was happening in North America. And I told you that story. With me, everything that I was doing was working, except every metric was working except email marketing. For some reason, it wasn't working, and I knew it wasn't working. But all my properties were full all the time. My owners were happy, so I just said, "I'm going golfing." Great. So, but when the crisis hit, I knew my number one strategy had to be my email marketing. And I said to myself, you knew this was a problem. You ignored it. You didn't fix it. So fortunately I was able to fix it, and I was fix it on the fly, and it didn't cost me, it didn't really hurt me, but it could have. But I would say, be in a good position. You're running a good sound business. You're in a good position before a crisis. You'll be in a real good position when recovery starts.
Sometimes you just got to put off that round of golf, eh?
Yes, yeah, you're exactly right.
Terry, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for sharing your journey and joining us on the Host Planet podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Terry Whyte. Whether things are going well or you're facing a crisis, never underestimate the power of marketing. If you're looking for more free education, head to hostplanet.club, the fastest growing multimedia platform in the short-term rentals industry. We're proud to help hosts and property managers supercharge their businesses by sharing a wealth of free content. Head online to sign up for our newsletter, download our suite of ebooks, and listen to our podcast series. Until next time, happy hosting.